Hello folks, I'm Trev Makes It Easy, the channel where we make learning easy. In this series, Trev on Econ, I'll be taking you through topics you're likely to run into in any introductory course in economics at the college or university level. My goal is to make economics less scary, more approachable, and, if I can, mildly enjoyable. With that being said, let's make it easy. All right, folks, let's get started. So, we've talked about demand, we've talked about supply, we've talked about what moves demand, we've talked about what moves supply. Now we're going to combine the two. So the model is called the demand and supply model, which means we need to put these two things on top of each other and see what happens. So again, we're going to use the same axis we did in the first video. So we've got our quantity down here, which we mark with a Q, and we've got our P up here, which we mark for price. Now, as a reminder, demand is a downward sloping curve, meaning when prices are high, we have very low quantity, but as prices drop, we buy more and more and more. And we throw the letter D on that just to remind us. For supply, it had the same set of axes of P and Q, but at low prices, we didn't want to sell any, but as prices rose, we would sell more, and we get a picture like this. Now, I'm going to copy this picture because I'm going to need a few times today, but you are going to see this picture a lot. If you're looking into more of the macro topics, you probably see this a little less, but in the micro topics, you're going to see this all the time. All right. Now, without me even telling you, you can probably guess that there is something on this graph that we pay particular attention to. And that's going to be this spot right here where they overlap. So this is what's called equilibrium, right? And equilibrium is a very important part about economics. Effectively, most of the stuff we do in introductory economics is about finding equilibrium and dealing with equilibrium when things change. All right. So equilibrium, mathematically, is the point where quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. Basically saying, I have this many things wanting to be bought, I have this many things being made, there is a perfect match, every buyer has a seller, every seller has a buyer. That's perfect. No one's missing out. Everyone's getting exactly what they're willing to buy and sell, and things are stable. And that's exactly what this is. This market equilibrium is a point of stability. All right? i.e., we are happy here. Not the best phrasing, but it's basically what it is. All right, we like equilibrium. Equilibrium is going to be our goal 99% of the time, right? Now, you'll notice here I did say quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. Some teachers don't care much about this and use it interchangeably, but there are some that are sticklers where saying demand equals supply is technically not correct. Remember, demand means the entire curve. Supply means the entire curve. So if they're equal, that would mean they're on top of each other. So we don't want them to be on top of each other. We want 1 point on demand to be equal to 1 point on supply, and they overlap. You can almost think about it as there's all these dots along the demand, there's all these dots along the supply, and we're trying to find the spot where the dots line up. If I can do that, I've found equilibrium and I'm happy. Okay. Now, we usually refer to this by PE and QE, which is equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. So if I was to go to this graph, you'll often see us mark out something like this. And we will insert that this is that equilibrium price, and this is our equilibrium quantity. Some people use Q star and P star, and there's all sorts of ways you can mark it, but understand that wherever the two lines intersect or cross over each other, that's going to be the part we're interested in. Okay. Now, what this is basically telling us is that there's a specific price level that is going to make this happen. Okay. whatever this price level is, this is going to cause the market to be in equilibrium, where again, we have so many buyers, so many sellers, and they're lining up nicely. The problem is, what if we're not at this price? And that's going to be the first thing we deal with in terms of disruptions to equilibrium. The next few videos are going to deal with more of these disruptions, but for now, we're going to start out with some of the simpler ones. So the first one is, well, what happens if instead of the correct price, I'm going to pick a price that is too high? Let's use blue here. So I'm going to pick a price up here, and I'm going to give it the very creative name of P high. Okay, I have a high price. This is one problem we could run into. The other problem we could run into is a low price. So, same idea. Maybe there's a price down here, and we call this P low. Again, the nice thing about economics is if we do something one way, we're going to get a result, and if we do it the other way, we're just going to get the opposite result. So, let's do the high one and the low one simultaneously so you can see them side by side. So, when price is too high, what happens? Well, we're going to do what we did up here, which is we're going to dot out the price. But when we dotted out the price here, it hit both curves at the same time. But when I do it down here, I'm going to hit my demand curve here. And then I have to continue to hit my supply curve. All right. And then all of a sudden, we notice that there is a mismatch. All right. There is some level of quantity demanded and some level, pardon my not so straight drawing, of quantity supplied. And what we're running into here is that mismatch. There's a gap between the two. All right. So when price is too high, we get a couple things. Number one, quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded. Okay. It's the same thing as saying quantity demanded is less than quantity supplied. So again, could depend on phrasing. But there's this mismatch. You can think of it as we have all these sellers, but only this many buyers. So when I try to pair them up, I have some sellers who want to sell, but aren't actually being able to sell. There's no one lining up with them. This has a name. This is called a surplus, right? Surplus meaning we have too much. And this happens when price is too high, because effectively what's happened is the two dots used to be on top of each other here, but when the price rose, the demand dot traveled up its curve over to here, and the supply dot traveled up its curve over to here and created this mismatch, right? So this gap, this is our surplus. And we often care about the size of the surplus, and the size of the surplus is just QS minus, QD equals surplus size, right? So for example, let's say I picked quantity supplied to be 10, and I picked quantity demanded to be 6. Well, then the surplus would be just the difference between those two. So we do 10 minus 6 is 4. The surplus would be 4. It's the size of the gap between the two, right? Now the fun part. How do you solve this? Because again, we don't like to be out of equilibrium. This is not in equilibrium. All right, we want to get back down to here. And this is one of the nice places where it's an easy solution to a problem. Because guess what? The problem is surplus price is too high. How do you fix a price that's too high? You lower the price. All right. So to solve this, just lower the price back to equilibrium, which I'll call EQ for short, right? So what you would do is say, oh, I want to put this item on sale, or I want to, I don't know, do something. I want to bring it back down to here, and that's going to get me back to my equilibrium. And effectively what's happening is this dot's going to move down the curve, this dot's going to move down the curve, and they're going to meet back up here. And ideally, we stop, we do it perfectly, and we're happy to move on in life. Well, are we going to do it perfectly? Not necessarily. So what could happen is, well, what if we went too low? And that leads us to our next problem. All right. If we overshoot things and all of a sudden the price is too low, we get the exact opposite issue, which is I'm going to hit supply first this time and then demand. And then what does that mean? Well, I'm going to get QS and QD. Very similar to what we just did, except in reverse order, because again, if we're doing a different thing, we should get different results. Right? And we're going to be able to say a lot of the same things we just said. So for this one, when price is too low, what's going to happen? Well, quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. Again, you could also say quantity supplied is less than quantity demanded. They mean the exact same thing. Pick your poison. This one, be careful. A lot of people want to call this a deficit. It's not a deficit, okay? This is called a shortage, right? One way to remember this that I like is that because it's lower, it's short, so shortage, short, all right? Not too hard to remember, but possibly worth it. In this one, you're doing the opposite. Again, you're still finding that gap, but the bigger number is QD this time. So you're going to do QD minus QS equals shortage size. Now, I would personally say don't really memorize the formula. Just understand that it is the gap between these two, all right? So again, if this was 10 and this was 6, it would still be 4. If this was 10 and this was 2, it would be 8. You're just finding the difference, all right? And sticking on our train of sort of easy solutions to problems, how do we solve this? Well, to solve this, we're just going to raise the price. So what's going to happen? Well, let's take that price. Let's bring it back up to where it's supposed to be. And say, oh, look, we're back at the spot. And what's happening? This is coming up this way. This dot's coming back up this way. And they're trying to get back to an equal point. And if I can do that, I've basically fixed or solved the market, which is always nice to do because, again, equilibrium is kind of like our happy place. All right. Bit shorter one today. Fair warning, the next one is going to be more intense because what we're going to do next is we're going to look at equilibrium is great, but what if I take my demand curve and move it this way? What if I take my supply curve and move it this way? What does that do to my equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity? We're going to start to delve into these shifting changes in equilibrium, and this is where I have found historically students tend to struggle. You won't want to miss the next couple. They're going to be very valuable. But until next time, bye-bye. Well, folks, that wraps up another lesson for today. I hope it was helpful. If you found the video valuable, please make sure to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions about the content or requests for other topics or subjects you'd like me to cover, please leave a comment below. Until next time, keep learning and make it easy.